Brazil, the federal police arrested former Justice Minister Anderson Torres in the framework of investigations into coup actions against President Lula da Silva on January 8th. In Peru, President Dina Boluarte partially acknowledged possible responsibilities in the Juliaca repression, but said she will remain in office. And in Syria, authorities denounced the ongoing plundering of oil by U.S. occupation forces in the country. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Brazil, the former Minister of Justice and Public Security in the government of Jair Bolsonaro, Anderson Torres, was arrested on Saturday in the framework of the investigation for the coup acts against President Lula da Silva. According to local media, the arrest took place at the International Airport of Brasilia around 7:20 a.m. local time when he arrived in the capital on a flight from the United States, being transferred to the Superintendents of the Police of the Federal District. His arrest was ordered by the Supreme Court Judge Alexander de Moraes, who is investigating him for alleged omission and complicity during the assault on the headquarters of the executive, legislative, and judicial powers. Torres was the Secretary of Security of the Federal District Government and therefore the most responsible for guaranteeing the integrity of the public buildings that were invaded by Bolsonaro supporters. On Friday, the Bolivian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Rogelio Maita, rejected the pronouncement of the U.S. State Department official Brian Nichols, who had tweeted his concern over violence reports regarding the protests in Santa Cruz. Rogelio Maita stated that Nichols' comments could be seen as inappropriate interference in Bolivian matters. In this sense, he added that these kind of pronouncements made by U.S. officials and parliamentarians show their intention to control the entire world, pointing out as an example that the Bolivian Foreign Ministry does not issue tweets denouncing U.S. serious violations of rights towards the African American population. Relations between Bolivia and the United States are only at the chargé d'affaires level, after former President Evo Morales ordered withdrawal of Ambassador Philip Goldberg for interference in 2008. Ecuador's feminist collective insists on the call to avoid political violence against women candidates for regional and local positions. At a press conference, the coordinator of the Violeta Si Violence No coalition, which translates to Yes to Violence and Not to Violence, social leader Rocio Rosero explained that this initiative seeks to influence parties, movements, and electoral authorities to achieve a responsible presence of women in the elections. The 15 organizations that make up the movement will ask the parties to sign a commitment that guarantees women's access to power spaces under equal conditions. The latter should include a protocol to deal with, sanction, and eradicate aggressions. Peruvian President Dina Boluarte asked Friday for forgiveness if her government made a mistake in finding peace and calm. She said she would not resign, though. The president, who had not made any public statements since Monday, expressed categorically that she will remain in office while asking Congress to bring forward the elections. She did so in a conference held after swearing in 3 new ministers who replaced the resigning ministers of Labor and Employment Promotion, Women and Vulnerable Populations, and Interior. Boluarte also minimized the protests that gathered thousands of Peruvian men and women all over the country. In Peru, Congressmen filed a complaint against the 19 ministers that make up the cabinet of President Dina Boluarte, who on Friday reiterated that she will remain in office despite demonstrations demanding her resignation. Congresswoman Kelly Portalantino from the Peru Libre Party presented the initiative before the Subcommission of Constitutional Accusations. She indicated the accusation responds to the crimes perpetrated by the administration against the Peruvian citizens, including homicides and serious injuries, during the demonstrations that have taken place in the past weeks. The violent repression against protests demanding Boluarte's resignation have left a total of nearly 50 civilians killed as well as hundreds of demonstrators injured or detained. In the official document, Porta Latino requested that the responsibilities of the accused officials be determined through a special parliament process. Also in Peru, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights called on Friday for an end to violence after the murder of at least 47 people at the hands of state repression. In a press conference on the balance of the three-day visit of the IACHR to Peru, the vice president of the organization and rapporteur for the Andean country, Edgar Stuardo Ralón, assured that the solution to the anti-government protests must be through dialogue, agreements and respect for the rule of law. He also informed that up to Thursday, 47 people had died, among them 7 teenagers, while at least 650 people and 290 members of the security forces were injured. In view of this, he asked the government for serious and impartial investigations. On Friday in Honduras, authorities declared a green alert for 48 hours due to a tidal wave that would affect at least 6 departments. The forecast of the entry of a prefrontal flu prompted the measure. It is expected that a cold front will enter the country on Saturday morning. The meteorological phenomenon will enter through the Gulf of Fonseca in the Pacific and generate rains with isolated electric activity in the Bay Islands, Atlantida, north of Cortez, and Santa Barbara. The National Permanent Contingency Commission warned that accelerated fresh winds with moderate to heavy rains will also take place in the north together with drizzle in the west, center, and east of the country. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back from the South. In Haiti, the Wont party advocated on Friday for a political summit to solve the country's problems since the agreement promoted by the government has not reached the necessary consensus. Party coordinator and former lawmaker Jerry Tardieu said Haitians can avoid political disorder, fight chaos, and solve insecurity if they unite their wills and skills. He then added that there should be a political conference between the signatories of the consensus for the transition promoted by the government of Ariel Henry and the national forces that still haven't joined the initiative. He added that this December 21st agreement can be considered as a first round of discussions and that the political summit must be organized under conditions that take into account Republican principles inspired by successful formulas already experimented in other countries. Following the North American Leaders Summit that took place in Mexico earlier this week and concluded with a commitment to greater cooperation on issues such as trade and migration, opinions among Mexicans seems divided, especially regarding the high presence of migrants from other countries in Mexican territory. Our correspondent in Mexico, Daniel Rosas, with the details.
Following the announcement of greater economic cooperation between the countries of North America, Mexicans welcome temporary visas to work in the United States or Canada, but at the same time, reject the presence of thousands of migrants on Mexican soil.
Trade with Canada and the United States, as long as Mr. Ebrard negotiates, everything can work out very well for Mexico. I think it's good or correct, since we really turn to other places to have more income, because here, with so much crime, it is no longer possible. Bringing Canadian companies here helps to create jobs, doesn't it? And if we Mexicans can create companies there, so much better.
But opinions change when it comes to creating jobs in Mexico for people from Central and South America.
Migration at a global level is already a troubling situation itself. Keeping 3,000 people at the border when we have so many problems there, I don't think that is right. I don't like it. I don't really like that. I don't like the relationship with the United States because at the end of the day, it's when they want to, they just use people. Well, the United States might be able to cooperate to maintain or help those people here. I mean, if it give us a budget, that would be great.
And for some people, this is not important, not even the meeting of the leaders.
I think there are more important issues to solve, to talk about, to discuss, rather than the visit of a president from another country.
These opinions stand in contrast to the optimism shown by the Mexican authorities.
We consider that the summit on the bilateral meetings has been a success for Mexico and for North America. We remind you that a few years ago, when this government began, it was in question whether or not North America had a common future. It was very good that this meeting took place. It was very good for our people, and I would say that it was in the interest of the people of Canada, the people of the United States, and the people of Mexico.
The three countries will establish a committee to speed up the uptake of the region's integration. It will have 4 experts from each nation.
Daniel Rosas, TeleSUR, Ciudad de México.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump's company was fined with $1.6 million on Friday for a scheme in which his top executive evaded personal income taxes. The fine was the only penalty a judge could impose on the Trump organization for its conviction last month on 17 tax crimes, which included conspiracy and falsification of business records. The amount imposed by Judge Juan Manuel Marchand was the maximum allowed by law and doubles the amount of what the small group of executives dodged on benefits that included rent-free apartments in Trump buildings, luxury cars, and private school tuition. In the Czech Republic, polling stations began counting votes following the end of the second day of elections, with a high turnout of more than 60%. According to official figures of the 8 candidates, former Prime Minister Andrzej Babis, retired General Petr Pavel, and academic economist Danush Nerudova appear to be the 3 frontrunners in the presidential contest. So far, polls indicate that no candidate will get more than 50% of the votes, while the people are still waiting for the 2 winning candidates who will face each other in the second round on January 27th-28th. The new leader appointed this day will replace the current president Milos Zeman, whose term of office expires in March. In 2022, China has had a record surplus of over $877 billion, reaching a 7% increase in exports despite the weakening of US and European demand and the effects of COVID-19 control measures that temporarily shut down Shanghai and other industrial centers. According to data released by China's Customs Office, exports increased to $3.95 trillion, decelerating from 2021's explosive growth. Imports also increased by 1.1% to $2.7 trillion, cooling from the previous year's over 30% rise as growth in the world's second-largest economy slowed down. China's Customs General Administration spokesperson Lu Dalian said that the current foundation for economic recovery is not yet solid, given the external volatility with increasing downward pressure of the world economy.
In 2022, China's foreign trade volume exceeded 40 trillion yuan for the first time, maintaining steady growth on the high basis of 2021 and reaching a record high. China has remained the top country in trading goods for 6 consecutive years.
Russia announced on Friday that it has taken control over the town of Soledar, located in the Donetsk People's Republic, which has been the scene of heavy fighting over the past few months. The Russian Defense Ministry reported that the town came under Russian control on January 12th. Official Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov said that full control over Soledar makes it possible to cut off the supply routes of the Ukrainian troops in the southwestern town of Artyomov, and thus block and encircle the remaining units of the Ukrainian armed forces in the town. The Russian Defense Ministry also said that the assault on the nationalist-occupied urban centers of Soledar was successfully carried out by the Wagner Group, a private military formation. And we have more news coming up after a final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Local activists in Syria confirmed that U.S. illegal troops in the country continue plundering the Arab nation's oil resources. Local media denounced that a caravan of 53 tanker trucks loaded with Syrian crude oil left the oil fields in the northeast of the province of Asake and entered Iraq through the illegal crossing of Bahmudia. This plundering of Syrian assets is added to the many others carried out by U.S. troops, together with the so-called Democratic Forces of Syria, and takes place in the middle of the energy crisis that the country is experiencing due to Washington's illegal occupation. The Syrian Foreign Ministry has repeatedly denounced that the losses in the sector exceed $105 billion. Palestinian prisoners in Israel reported new protests in rejection of punitive measures applied by Tel Aviv authorities against them. In a press release, prisoners of the governmental Fatah movement called on the inhabitants of occupied territories to support the struggle in Israeli prisons. Prisoners also denounced that they are facing difficult living conditions due to the cold, since they lack heating and coats to cope with the winter. They say that although their families try to bring them clothes, prison service officials in that country do not allow them to receive any. These protests are added to the systematic protests by Palestinian prisoners, including hunger strikes to reject punitive measures taken or to denounce any new Israeli crime in the West Bank or Gaza Strip. Tarek El Aissami, Venezuelan Vice President of the Economy and Minister of Oil, proposed this Friday the creation of an energy development bank before the Voice of the Global South Summit. The proposal seeks to leverage and support diversification projects of the southern countries under the principles of solidarity, complementarity, and self-determination of the peoples. El Aissami reiterated the commitment of his government as signatory of the International Solar Alliance to maintain joint efforts for development of an alternative energy plan based on solar energy projects. The Venezuelan diplomat also urged representatives of 120 developing countries in Africa, Latin America, and Asia to invest in his country to develop its energy potential and make it available for humanity's great needs. The island nation of Sri Lanka announced on Friday its plans to reduce the number of troops in the army ranks by the year 2030. The members belonging to this armed institution will be reduced to 100,000 troops after strong criticisms that the investment in military tactical material is higher than the one for health and education sectors in the 2023 budget. According to a communique issued by the Ministry of Defense, troops will be limited to 135,000 troops for the year. The overall objective of the strategic plan is to establish a tactically sound and balanced defense force to meet future security challenges. On Friday, the former president of Kenya met in Mombasa with members of the insurgent group March 23 movement in an attempt to reach a peaceful solution for North Kivu, an eastern province of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In his role as facilitator of the East African Community Peace Process, former President Uhuru Kenyatta has met with M23 leaders in the city located in southeast Kenya. This is part of a series of meetings with various Congolese armed groups to consolidate dialogues in order to bring peace to the country. Tensions between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda have been aggravated by the actions of the rebel group, as the DRC accuses its neighboring country of having originally funded the insurgent group. The Lebanese army responded on Friday to an Israeli air violation, the second in the current week, as a sign of the ongoing Zionist infringements by sea or air over the Levantine territory. The armed forces confirmed via Twitter that a patrol fired a drone, one of the enemy entity, that was flying over the national airspace. The military institution specified that the violation took place on the outskirts of the town of Hula and Wadi Hunain, on the southern side of the border with Tel Aviv. This week, a drone belonging to the Israeli army violated Lebanese airspace from the town of Ramyah towards the town of Marwachin in the south of the country. Both countries have been at war since the establishment of the State of Israel in the occupied land of Palestine, and throughout these years many crimes and attacks remain in the memory of the people of Lebanon. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.